gone. Since yesterday. Overnight. I wasn't too worried about it until she didn't come home last night. She never stays out all night. She's not that kind of girl, Mr. Malloy." He seemed very anxious for Frank to believe that. Frank nodded.
"How old is she?"
"She's—" He closed his eyes, squinting them in his effort to remember. Or maybe he was doing the math. "She's 28. Not a flighty young girl, my Grace. Very sensible. Not the kind of girl who stays out all night without saying a word to anyone."
"Have you looked for her?"
"Of course I did," he almost snapped, then caught himself. "I'm sorry. Yes, I contacted all her friends, but none of them had seen her. I went to the church to see if she'd been there. She volunteers, you see, and I thought perhaps, well, if she'd been taken ill and no one knew—"
"But she wasn't there."
"She wasn't there, or at the library, or any other place she might have gone."
"She's not married?"
"No. An unclaimed blessing, we always said. She'd make some man a wonderful wife, but—"
"Does she have any gentlemen friends? Anyone she might have eloped with?"
Livingston's pale blue eyes widened. "Eloped?"
"Maybe you didn't approve of him, so they decided to run off together. It happens."
For a moment, hope sparked in his eyes, but it died quickly. "No, I'm afraid not. Grace doesn't have any gentleman friends, suitable or not." Of course, if the gentleman was unsuitable, Grace probably wouldn't have brought him home to meet her father. But Frank would find out for sure from her friends. He hoped that was it, because the other reasons a young woman might go missing in New York City weren't good.
"When did you last see her, Mr. Livingston?"
"Yesterday morning. We had breakfast together. I asked her what she was going to do that day, and she said she had some errands."
"Did she say what the errands were?"
"No. I've been racking my brain all night trying to recall. But that's all she said, just errands."
"Did she say anything to your wife?"
A shadow crossed his face. "My wife died several years ago. Grace is our only child."
"I'm sorry," Frank murmured. "What about your servants?"
"I asked them, of course. We live very simply with just a cook and 2 maids. They said she went out around 11 o'clock.
"Did she tell them where she was going?"
"She had some errands, she said, that's all." So, plainly, she had something important to do that she didn't want anyone to know about, Frank thought. But he said,
"I'd like to question them myself, if you don't mind."
"Of course I don't mind. I'm sure they'll be happy to help. They love Grace." Frank would reserve judgment on that until he'd talked to them himself.
"I'll also need to see her room."
"Her room? Her bedroom?" The very idea shocked him.
"She may have left something behind that would tell us where she was going. She may even have left a note."
"A note? I didn't think of that." Frank doubted that she had, but he wasn't going to tell Mr. Livingston.
"Maybe she was going someplace she didn't think you'd approve of, so she left you a note."
"You really think so? My goodness, we should go right now then, shouldn't we?" Frank saw no reason to delay. The 2 men left police headquarters, walked down Houston Street, and caught the 3rd Avenue elevated train up to 42nd Street. While the L rattled uptown, Mr. Livingston explained that he didn't keep a carriage. The cost and bother was too much in New York City, where you could usually walk faster than a horse could pull you through the streets. Frank decided he wouldn't keep a carriage either, when the time came. But maybe Sarah had other ideas about that. Livingston didn't want to discuss his daughter on a crowded railway platform, or in an even more crowded railway car, so they rode the rest of the way in silence. A short walk from 42nd Street Station brought them to a fairly new brownstone in a row of equally new brownstone townhouses. A maid came rushing down the hallway as they entered.